Thanks for staying. Welcome back. Now, economist and former board chairman of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, Ishmael Yamson, is calling for an audit into the various incentives given by the government to foreign businesses and investors. According to Ishmael Yamson, government must conduct a cost-benefit analysis on all tax holidays to help the state have a fair idea of how much is being lost or gained from the incentives under the policy initiatives.
Government in the 2017 budget granted some tax incentives to selected sectors of industry players as a way of encouraging more investment in those sectors. This was government's response to the call for a flexible economic environment for businesses in the country. After 2 years of implementation, however, some experts think the tax incentives have not yielded the desired results. In an interview with Joy Business, renowned economist Ishmael Yamson thinks it is time for government to commission a research into the tax incentives.
Ghana is in competition with almost every country in the world. If I have $1 million, I can choose to put it in any country, either in Africa or Asia, whatever. And I will look for the company that will give me the best terms of investment, including, of course, a macro environment and a micro environment, which is attractive and enabling. So that's the reason why I think that when we give incentives and benefits, we shouldn't always complain. But let me add that often it's not the incentives and benefits that are excessive, but it is the way we manage, we monitor. Because if you have given incentive benefits over time to a particular company, you should monitor and make sure that you are getting the benefit that you are supposed to get. And don't give them away and go to sleep.
He spoke with Joy Business after addressing some members of the UK Chamber of Business and Commerce here in Accra. Ishmael Yamson urged organizations to exercise patience in criticizing some of the incentive policies by government.
Very often, when we hear about, oh, this company has been given this incentive and this, our immediate reaction is to say, we are giving so much away. I think what we should do is to be patient enough to analyze how much it is going to cost this country, say over a 5-year period, in granting those incentives and benefits, and how much would we get in return in terms of taxes, in terms of jobs created, in terms of other multiplier effects that the country would benefit. And not just look at the only one side of the cost of the country without looking at the benefit that the country would derive from giving out those benefits incentives.
The engagement was part of moves by the UK Chamber of Commerce and Business to inform members about some initiatives by government to attract British investors.
Now, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta says the economy is now poised for the expected transformation and growth after firmly stabilizing last year. He was speaking at an engagement with business and financial journalists in Accra on the state of the economy and progress made so far. There's more in the following report.
The meeting was meant to give journalists an update on the 2018 fiscal developments, expenditure and update on disbursement of major policy initiatives. Some of the main issues the minister touched on also included some policies being implemented to help transform the economy. According to the ministry, this transformation will be influenced by government's commitment to move Ghana beyond aid.
The key thing for us in this office is sustainability, whether we have the resources to pay for it. And when you see the explanation given on the primary balance, it doesn't really matter irrespective of what it is. You can see efforts towards moving the matrix such that we really are trying hard not to borrow to support borrowing. And I think that that's an important story in and of itself. I suspect even the rebasing is going to even give us a bigger and give us technically more capacity to borrow more. But what is really critical is the payments relative to revenue. So then we come back to, how much we can get our revenue bolstered.
The minister also spoke about how far they have come in reducing the public debt.
Going forward, we'll be focusing on expanding the economy and creating more opportunities for all of us Ghanaians to be able to operate. And in a sense, we met sort of our key macroeconomic targets in 2017 and successfully completed the IMF fourth review program. We outperformed the deficit target of 6.3% to 6% from 9%. We reduced the total debt to GDP ratios to under 70%. We exceeded the annual real GDP growth target of 6.3%.
And meanwhile, the finance ministry is saying the country is likely to end the IMF program by the end of the year. There have been persistent questions on whether or not the current government would continue with the program. But in the finance minister's words, he says the country has so far met the economic indicators and is likely that during the next review, which is slated for April, the country's stance will be made.
With regards to IMF in December 2018, that's a commitment by the presidency. I don't know, I know we have some two or so prior actions we need and about maybe 5 or so structural bank matter we need to be able to make to be able to do the April 9th board meeting, and we are committed to doing that, and we will do that. Then the rest of the year will be ahead of us. But I think one of the key issues really, it's the ministry working together with GRA and the Ghanaian people to really boost up our revenues. That's key. I think all of the reforms that you may have mentioned or thought of, I don't think there are things that we would not want to do anyway. And so, and when you see the explanation given on the primary balance, it doesn't really matter irrespective of what it is. You can see efforts towards moving the matrix such that we really are trying hard not to borrow to support borrowing. And I think that that's an important story in and of itself. I suspect even the rebasing is going to even give us a bigger and give us technically more capacity to borrow more. But what is really critical is the payments relative to revenue. So then we come back to, you know, how much we can get our revenue bolstered, and that's why Kofi Nti is sitting here, so that we can put more pressure on him. But I think that's a key issue.
Away from that, the Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture has reconstituted an 8-member board for the Fisheries Commission to help address various challenges facing the sector. Speaking in an interview at the sidelines of the inauguration of the board, the Sector Minister Elizabeth Afule-Kwei hinted of establishing special monitoring boards across the country to deal with the issue of pre-mixed fuel diversions.
There were 14 companies that were cited for the diversion of pre-mixed fuel. The National Petroleum Authority carried out an investigation, and we received a letter early this month, February, that 7 of them had been investigated and cleared. So 7 were returned to us to supply, to allow them to distribute the premixed fuel. So at the moment, we have about 19 companies distributing premixed fuel.
Speaking of the issues related to the fish stock in Ghana, in your speech you did mention that we have exhausted the limits and we have to now resort to aquaculture farming. Speaking of exhausting the limits, does that tend to mean that if we don't venture into aquaculture farming, there could be kind of a spike in the price of fish production? Our
population keeps rising, so we have to put in certain management practices that will enable us improve upon our production, to increase production. So it is not just the dwindling stocks, but also the increase in population. Yes, so we have to meet the demands of the population, and that's why we have to do a lot more aquaculture. With regards to the dwindling stocks, we may not be able to improve the stocks now, but if we put in management practices that will help to rejuvenate the stocks, then in the very near future we may have some species that are lost at the moment showing up again, coming up again. So we are doing a lot. We have this year, like you heard the president say in the State of the Nation address, this year we have actually shown a lot of respect. We have observed very well the close season. The industrial trawlers have observed the close season. For the artisanal fishers, who also constitute over 70% of the fishers, this year we are engaging with them to institute certain alternative livelihood programs so that they will also accept to do the close season. So we are now focusing on the artisanal fishers to also go into the close season.
Let's now turn our attention to the downstream petroleum sector, and industry players are expecting a further drop in fuel prices as the first pricing window for the month of March opens. The previous window saw a marginal drop in pricing as government reduced the special petroleum tax from 17% to 15%. The action drew some further controversy as consumers called for a total scrap of the tax. Let's speak now with the Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana, Duncan Amwa, for more on what exactly we should expect in the next pricing window and what are the particular reasons, and as well as other developments within the sector. Duncan, good afternoon. Welcome to the marketplace. Now, do we expect a drop or an increase in pricing for the first 2 weeks of March?
Indeed, from what we have observed on the international market, Ghanaian consumers are likely to get between 2 and 3% reduction further in the month of March. Prices for both Argo and Petro or PMS have seen some marginal decline over the past 2 weeks. And so, like we've indicated, it is likely that by 1st, 2nd of March, prices at the forecourt or the pumps are likely to go down further by some 2% within the next few days.
All right, so can we conclude that the reduction in the SPT is having a significant impact on pricing? And if not, what are the reasons, are the other reasons leading to this particular drop?
Indeed, if you take a look at the world oil pricing situation, the American shale technology is still a dwarfing factor for prices going up. And whereas the world market prices continue to hover around 65 for a barrel, what you would have is that most of the finished products that we have today are seeing some drop or decline in prices. As to how sustainable this would be post the first window of March, that is yet to be seen. It might go up second window March, but for the first window, it is rather likely that prices will go down because of some decline we have seen. Again, the SPT has also been fixed at 46 pesos now for both petrol and diesel. So what it means is that a decline or an increase or in the world market price may not directly affect the SPT, although we still continue to dialogue with government for further reduction in the SPT because we believe that it could go down further to give much more relief to consumers than it did when they went to Parliament. Although we think, like we've almost always said, it was a good gesture, it still is a good gesture. A lot, however, could be done going forward to bring the SPT down further. That's our expectation.
Now, before that, you were clamoring for the total removal of the SPT as well as other price build-up taxes. And are you still maintaining this position, or you have turned around?
Indeed, The SPT, if you look at the mandate and purpose for which it was introduced, one will be in a difficult place to justify its current position on the price build-up. And so it would have been good for all of us if the SPT had been scrapped completely. But when you also do listen to officials from government, you get the impression that they've timed a lot of their revenue expectations on the SPT also for the current budget period. What we would seek to do will be to continuously dialogue to ensure that maybe the next budget reading, government could find alternate revenue sources in order to be able to go down further, if not scrap completely, on the SPT. Again, some of the taxes on the price build-up, i.e. the toll debt recovery levy, if you look at the boss margin equally, we find them quite unreasonable at this time, considering that the entities are operating as business concerns. One wonders why the truck driver, the taxi driver, the ordinary driver would have to be burdened with taxes further for these entities. That should normally operate just like all other BDCs are operating, just like all other refineries are operating across the world. We do not find some of the taxes still in the price build-up justifiable aside the SPT. Some more would have to be done to bring taxes generally down on the price build-up completely.
All right, many thanks for your time, Duncan Amwa. And Duncan Amwa is Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, Ghana. Away from that, prices of some local textiles and fabrics could shoot up in the coming months. Textile companies are trying to pass the huge cost incurred in importing cotton for production on consumers. Sheila Tamaklo explores some of these issues in the following Business Desk report.
The challenge in the cotton industry for many has gone from bad to worse. Farmers have blamed the dwindling production on poor pricing, inadequate subsidy on inputs, among other issues. According to one of the major textile manufacturers, GTP, only 30% of their raw material needs is met locally. This has led to heavy reliance on imported grey baft and cotton to support its operations. A development which a marketing manager of the company says is not sustainable.
If we source locally, the lead times are shorter. And so because of that, we are able to save on capital. When lead times are shorter, you don't need to hold huge stocks at any given point in time. But because we have to import from outside, at any point in time, you have to import a lot more and hold stocks for a long period of time. And the more stocks you hold, you are locking up your capital. Number two, when you import, the cost of freight, the cost of clearing and other taxes that you pay, you don't do so when it comes to importing or buying from the local source or supplier. So again, it's beneficial to us. So we gain if we source locally. Okay, I think these are the two major advantages we get. So at the end of the day, it costs us more if we import our grey baft.
Is this importation of cotton by any chance affecting the prices of these fabrics?
Yes, it does. It does. As I said, of course, you input all your cost of production and then before you come up with your selling price. So it does.
For some industry players, the development, if not handled, could cripple the entire industry, leaving us with a situation where most of our fabrics are imported. However, the Agric Ministry is optimistic that the situation will soon change as the ministry is bringing on some Chinese investors to cultivate 2,000 hectares of cotton this year.
It's all on the marketplace, and mining companies are being accused of under-declaring production levels and revenues. The Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, disclosed this at an ongoing IMF meeting in Accra. George Biafe was there and has joined me here in the studio for some more on this particular development. Now, George, what was the basis for the Vice President's claim?
So quickly on this meeting is an IMF meeting putting together, engaging some players in the industry as well as Africa as well. And the Vice President in his speech said that from their end, there have been instances where that company, for instance, 5 years hasn't declared profits. And there's been an assigned institution, that is the PMMC, to do this assessment. They are not allowing the PMC to do this, and they are sidestepping PMC to actually send these gold resources out of the country. And from their end, it looks like when they do the reconciliation, it's different from what the mining firms declare and actually what is being sent out.
And what is the response of these mining companies?
The Ghana Chamber of Mines was actually surprised at this. They believe that there has been some level of engagement, but they don't think that is really a situation on the ground. Let's hear from Suleiman Koni. He is the chief executive of the chamber. Let's watch him.
It is simply not acceptable that for a very long time an institution of state with the powers to help in properly accounting for our mineral resources was not enabled nor allowed to perform its job. This has to change. Thankfully, we have now begun conversations about the process of making sure every single bar of gold leaving our shores is properly weighed, tested, valued, and accounted for. While the process may not be as robust as we want, it is a positive step in the right direction. We are impressed with the collaboration between the Ghana Chamber of Mines and the Precious Minerals Marketing Company in making sure we expedite the full spectrum of accounting for our gold resources. A few months ago, I sent a team to the bauxite mine, and we wanted to find out what was going on there, because for 5 years, even though government had a share in this enterprise, we had received no dividends. So we wanted to find out what was going on. Are they mining or what is going on? But actually, they've been vigorously mining for 5 years and declared no profit because they're claiming they made no profit. And I'm trying to see how the theory of the Fed will predict whether they will survive or not. 5 years of mining without profit, but they are vigorously mining, and we just don't see how that's be. Another issue that I want you to consider is the nature of...
All right, so that was the Vice President. Now, George, what else came up at the meeting?
So, we engaged, and that was the clip that you watched the Vice President earlier explaining or raising issues with the challenges with different figures being put out by the mining company and what they've got. What we also got from the Chamber of Mines is that what they welcome the announcement by Anglo Gold to actually resume operations and how that could impact on the entire mining business in the country in terms of employment, in terms of pickup in gold production for the entire industry.
Many thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.
And on that note, we wrap up this edition of The Marketplace. Many thanks for joining us. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji. Join me again same time tomorrow for more interesting developments in the world of business. Have a good afternoon.